I absolutely love great stories. I mean, who doesn't? I love getting invested in new worlds and characters and going on crazy journeys. There are many different mediums to experience this, but there is something distinctly different about experiencing an excellent story through a video game. The only instance in which you can actually play through the shoes of these characters rather than watching or reading them. And there are many games that have decent stories overall, and ones I would consider pretty good. But man, when you get a masterpiece level story that just sticks with you for years and years, that is just something truly special. I have played many, and I mean many video games over the last decade or so, and these are the 10 that stuck with me the most. And just like before, try not to get too caught up on the overall numbers or placement. These are all masterpiece level stories for me, and ranking them is insanely difficult. And this is also based around the story itself, of course, and how it impacted me overall, not so much the gameplay and overall mechanics itself. Now, I've also not played every video game known to man, and there are still some currently that I am playing through, so this list will only, of course, include games that I have beat. So without further ado, let's just... the Metro. I have seen list after list of people's favorite stories in games, and almost never do I cross the Metro series, which is absolutely baffling to me. Based on the novels with the same name by Dmitry Glukhovsky, Metro 2033 is the first entry in the franchise. This is a first-person shooter set in the near future of Moscow after a nuclear war killed billions, and all of the remaining survivors had to flee to the Metro tunnels for survival to escape the radiation. You play as Artyom, who grew up in the Metro tunnels, and after being attacked by the Dark Ones, Artyom is forced to leave his home and seek help. I absolutely fell in love with this game. This is one of those ones I completely bought on a whim, and I was just stunned by the time the credits rolled. I feel like it has been such a while since I was left so stunned by the story in a first-person shooter. Not that it's impossible, of course, but it just feels a lot less common now. I cannot overstate how incredible the atmosphere and the music are in these games, and it just really adds a layer to the storytelling, the means of survival, and just how much these people have struggled. There are so many great characters, story beats, set pieces, and the finale all concludes wonderfully in the last two separate endings. The next two games, Last Light and Exodus, are much more loosely based on the novels, but are still excellent in all the same ways. If you have somehow never played the Metro series, I could not encourage you more to do so. I am really trying to keep a lot of these story beats very vague because it is just one of those games that needs to be experienced. I feel like for some reason this will be deemed as a generic pick, and yeah, there may be some truth to that, but I just can't help how much this game has impacted me, especially when I was younger. I remember playing the Uncharted 2 demo on my dad's PlayStation 3, and I was just immediately hooked. I didn't have any money, so I just replayed it over and over again until I finally earned some cash, went up to my local GameStop, and I bought the entire collection. This was one of the first video game experiences where I was just left so connected to the actual characters. Nathan Drake, Sully, Elena, Chloe, all felt and talked like real people. This was just also the game that I won't say started this, but definitely popularized the idea of having side characters with you and then kind of progressing the narrative just through normal exploration. Naughty Dog specifically has really utilized this in their future games, and I think it is one of their strong suits. Again, I think it just helps this world and these characters feel so alive and real. Sully and Nate's banter back and forth just never got old, and all of this just to conclude years later in the masterful ending that is Uncharted 4. I just finished that game feeling so satisfied with Nathan and his journey. All the immaculate set pieces, story beats, and emotional moments will just resonate with me for many years to come. God, the nostalgia I feel looking back on this game is just utterly insane. I love this entire franchise, but I will just never forget when this game came out in 2015. I think I was around 16 years old, and I had never really played any of these big, decision-based games before, so this was new for me. I believe there was a demo, and I got to the bathroom scene, and after that thing cut to black, I was freaking hooked. I bought the season pass because back then, if you didn't know, not all of these released at one time. A new episode came out every, few months or so. It's kind of like waiting for a new season of television, or, maybe an episode. But I was just frothing at the mouth waiting for the next episode to release. I just really felt invested in these characters. I loved Max and Chloe's relationship, and Arcadia Bay was just such an interesting place to explore. Playing as someone with the ability to rewind time was just so intriguing off the bat. I feel like that would be literally anyone's dream. I always enjoyed making a decision, rewinding time, and picking the other just so I could kind of see the outcomes of those decisions and kind of weigh my options. And there are some heavy decisions in here too. I mean, trying to talk a girl off jumping a ledge is insane. There's just such a mystery of this game as you were looking for Chloe's missing friend Rachel. There are so many twists and turns in this game. It's just such an emotional roller coaster, and sometimes left me in some tears. The final episode and learning who was responsible, my jaw was on the floor, and this game has just never left my mind since the first time I beat it back in 2015. Arguably one of my favorite PlayStation 2 games of all time. Psychonauts is incredibly overlooked and underrated in my opinion. This follows the story of a 10-year-old psychic Rasputin trying to join an elite group of psychics, the Psychonauts. It cannot be understated the brilliance of this game. Not only are the characters immediately likable from the start, the writing is absolutely brilliant and hilarious at that. But what is my favorite aspect of this is the way in which this game tells its story. You get to use astral projection in this game, which allows you to go inside someone's mind, and the levels are actually based around this person and their personality overall. It is a very similar concept to the movie Inception, except this is, way goofier, and I love it for that exact reason. This world and characters are just genuinely so interesting. Raz is also one of my all-time favorite video game protagonists. But again, I cannot stress enough how good the writing is in this game. Without it, I think this whole package completely crumbles. I mean, I know how much the Milkman conspiracy level has been praised over the years, and it is completely deserving of that. It's brilliant. The gameplay definitely feels much older and clunkier today, no doubt, but if you have never played this game and its sequel before, I could not encourage you to do so more. The storytelling is just completely worth it. The Infamous franchise is just so special to me and will always hold a place in my heart. I am begging for a new installment or at least a remake or a remaster of these games because they are just too good to be left untouched. Infamous 2 is a sequel that builds on a very, very strong foundation that the original game set. You play as Cole McGrath, who is trying to power himself up before the beast decimates New Marais. The voice acting and characters are just so enjoyable here. Cole and Zeke have always had such good chemistry, and that continues on here in the sequel. I have just always connected with this franchise since I first started playing these games, and I kind of felt like I grew up with them. I've always loved superhero media, and this was just the cream of the crop for video games. Great world building, an awesome villain, and just having the added value of the story being affected by your decisions in this game in this world around you. You could either be a hero or a complete monster, and I loved seeing how each of these played out. Mix all of that with these incredible cinematics that just looks like ripped pages out of a comic book. I hold this game so near and dear to my heart, and it is just one of my all-time favorites. Yeah, let's be real, you knew this one was coming, but I do have a confession to make. I have not always liked Red Dead Redemption 2. Now, to be fair, this was never because of the story. It was always in the gameplay and the pacing. This is a conversation for a different day. The point is, after years of trying since I bought it on launch, I finally beat Red Dead Redemption 2 for the first time, I think like less than a year ago, and let's just say it completely lived up to the hype and then some. Just being honest, there really just isn't anything more that I can add to this conversation that hasn't already been said. The world feels so alive and everything just has so much personality. Like the details in this game are just they're just insane. Arthur Morgan, Dutch, the whole gang, they all have their own unique traits. Their voice actors are doing phenomenal work. The writing is up there with some of the absolute best of the best. I enjoyed and cherished every second of this game right until Arthur's last breath. That also being something I will just never forget. And I also think the epilogue is great as well. As somebody who was never too crazy about the first game, I was really happy with how much I enjoyed this sequel by the end of it. It is truly one of a kind, and again, something something every gamer needs to experience at least once. Ah yes, the game that completely broke me. I had very little experience with these movie games or walking simulators, decision-based games, whatever you want to call them. And boy, was I hooked immediately after episode 1. Lee was just such an interesting character and this world was so well established. I love the butterfly effect idea and how you had to make decisions in real time and that affected the overall outcome. And funny enough, I was also never really crazy about the Walking Dead TV shows, so this was just my first introduction to this kind of world and I was obsessed. Heartbreaking betrayals, shocking twists, unexpected character deaths are all in store every season, and it was incredible. And I will never, and I mean never, forget the final episode of season 1. I was a shell of a man, completely broken watching Clem kill Lee. My heart was shattered. Season 1 is probably my overall favorite, but I think everyone is still really strong. I love watching Clementine grow up along with these games as well, and she is easily one of my favorite protagonists in gaming history. And after playing the final chapter and watching her take care of AJ the way Lee did to her, melts my heart. And anytime there was a flashback with Lee, I was a wreck. Again, I cannot stress enough about how much I love these characters in this story. I've played each season several times over. When you have this minimal amount of actual gameplay, the story and writing really has to make up for it, and it more than does in the Walking Dead series.
I chose the impossible. I chose rapture.
Rapture. What a special place. I genuinely mean it when I say I don't think there will ever be a time in my life where Bioshock will move from the top 3 spot, probably ever. I think this game changed me and altered my perception of video games as a whole is a gross understatement. We talk about atmosphere in gaming. This is the gold standard, having an environment that equally tells a story beyond the narrative. Rapture is the freaking blueprint. This game is beyond special. I've probably played Bioshock 1's, no joke, well over 20 times. I remember playing the demo on PlayStation 3 and I was immediately hooked. This was also a pretty insane thing for me personally because I usually don't enjoy stories where the main protagonist has no voice. It works so perfectly in the overall narrative and it actually has meaning behind it. Blindly following orders for 15 hours only to be hit with the infamous "would you kindly," and I guarantee you had to pick my jaw up off the floor. Just cannot gush enough about how much this story, world, characters, and everything means to me. Everyone had a story to tell. I listened to every audio diary and it just adds so much depth to this world. I adore this entire trilogy with my whole heart and I will never understand the hate for Bioshock Infinite and its story. But instead of having 3 Bioshock games on this list, I just opted for the best of the bunch. But if you have still never played any of these, this is a requirement, a must play. I got the Platinum Trophy on all of them this year for the first time and trust me, you would be amazed at how well these games hold up. Yep, we're doing the same thing here, lumping both of these together because they are all a part of one big narrative. This video game also drastically changed me back when I first played it in 2013. Now I have heard every critique of this game and it just simply will never make sense to me. Is the overall story simple? Absolutely. In the first game, we took a girl from point A to point B. I am extremely positive there are plenty of games that have an overall more complex narrative than that, but The Last of Us decides to focus on its characters first, and I have always been someone who prioritizes character over plot. From the first 20 minutes of the first game, I knew I was in for something different.
Sarah. Baby. Don't do this to me, baby. Don't do this to me, baby. Come on. No. No. No, no, no. Please. Please. Please.
It was almost insane how much more I felt for a character I had only known for merely 20 minutes than some characters who died 50 hours into a game. Because that is just how good the focus on characters was. Sarah felt like a real person and Joel's tears felt like my own. The relationship between Joel and Ellie evolves perfectly throughout this game. Joel being closed off, never wanting to feel the way he once felt, and by the end willing to make the ultimate sacrifice The Fate of Humanity. Again, I know I'm retreading old ground here, and we all know how amazing the first game is, but the sequel has been up for debate for some time now. And while it may not be the story I wanted Naughty Dog to personally tell, it is the one we got, and man, it was a journey. I've just never hurt so much from a video game before, and just felt utter hopelessness and hatred from start to finish.
If I ever were to lose you, I'd surely lose myself.
I applaud Naughty Dog for invoking such emotions out of me for 30 hours. Joel's death is likely something I will never forget. It hurt more than any other character death I've ever seen in gaming. That is just how impactful these games and its characters are. It was like losing a real friend. I think it was the ballsiest move to off Joel within the first 2 hours of the sequel and have us play as his killer for the other half of the game. And at first, you shut it down immediately, right? It makes no sense. But if you are open, you might find that Joel and Abby have a lot more in common than you realize. Maybe they're both willing to do whatever it takes for the people they love. The motion capture, storytelling, and voice acting are operating on levels only other AAA games would freaking dream of. And I think that is a big reason why this works so well. The Last of Us is a masterclass in storytelling, and anyone who says otherwise is lying. An absolute masterpiece, in every sense of the word. Now, as someone who has grown up with the original God of War games and absolutely loved them, this game is just operating on another level. Once again, I'm kind of lumping 2018 and Ragnarok together because they are two sides of the same coin. It's all one connected story. Since these games have become popular, I saw a ton of people say the old God of War games didn't have good storytelling, which that is just false. But again, this game just tells a much more personal story. Instead of revenge, it's the tale of a father who is learning how to love and guide his son while dealing with the grief and consequences of his actions. And Kratos is just such a complex character, and my God, does Christopher Judge put on just an all-star performance here.
Power of this weapon, any weapon, comes from here. But only when tempered by this. By the discipline, the self-control of the one who wields it. That is where the true strength of a warrior lies. You must never forget that.
The emotions this man is able to convey are unreal. We have a similar approach to The Last of Us here. Simple story, complex characters. Now, this does derail a little, of course, in Ragnarok, but I think for the most part, it sticks the landing. But I do prefer the overall story in 2018. I just love watching the relationship of Kratos and Atreus grow, and seeing him finally open up just brings me so much joy. I also think this was just the perfect place to go after God of War 3. Watching Kratos struggle to be a normal father was just such an interesting dynamic to witness. And not to mention, I think it goes without saying, Kratos is easily top 10 characters in gaming. I don't even think it's close. What he goes through, especially after the Valhalla DLC in Ragnarok, bringing everything full circle, makes it a super easy decision and such an amazing character to root for. Even though I do think Ragnarok's story struggles a bit more than 2018's due to the overall scope and scale, that does not mean it is without its great moments. The opening hour is sheer perfection, seeing how Atreus and Kratos have grown together as father and son, epic battles with gods, the big twist, Brock's death, watching them hug at the end of Ragnarok, that could just make a grown man cry. And I sure did.
Loki will go. Atreus. Atreus remains.
Just an absolute masterclass in storytelling. It may not be everyone's favorite, but it was 100% made for someone like me. The Norse mythology storylines were just perfect. So many great characters and memories. This game was all about the journey and not the destination. And boy, what a ride it was. So there it is. Those are my favorite stories in gaming. Now, I have been debating on doing a top 10 underrated stories because there's just so many story games that I love didn't quite make the top 10 list. And I think more people need to be aware of. So let me know if you'd be interested in that. And please let me know whatever games you think I missed or need to check out. Again, not played every game known to man. Make sure to like and subscribe, and yeah, that'll do it.